Hi there, it's Nicole here today, and I am combining some Essentials by Ellen dies and stamps with some of the new Lawn Fawn stamps and dies. And I've created this really fun window card here with the fish tank hiding behind the mending window die from the Essentials by Ellen die collection. To start, I'm going to stamp the majority of my elements for my card on some smooth white cardstock using a black ink. This is the My Favorite Things Black Licorice Hybrid ink. It works well with the Copic markers, and generally I find that it doesn't bleed. So I like the thick black line that it creates when coloring with Copic markers. I am going to stamp the large fish tank, as well as the sandcastle, seaweed, and 3 of the fish designs. I actually ended up using 4 fish designs. However, the 4th one I added a little bit near the end of designing the card, so I will show you that when we get to that point here in a little bit. I felt like it needed one more to fill it in once I had the window in place. I'm going to go ahead and start coloring in all of these stamped images now. I'm using the Copic markers E30 and E55 to color in the sand along the bottom of the fish tank. E30 is my base color, and then E55 is that great shading color. I'm going to go over that a couple times until I get it just the way I want it to look. Next, I'm going to color in the water in the fish tank. I'm using BG000 and BG01. I started with BG01 and basically just traced the lines of the water in the fish tank, and then I'm going to go back with my BG000 and fill in all of the water for that fish tank. I'm mostly using a small circular motion to really fill in that water. Because this is a larger surface area, I didn't want any streaky lines showing marker lines, so I'm kind of using that small circular motion. If it blends out that BG01, the shading, too much, you can go back in. I'm going back in there and then I'll blend it out again. You can do that as many times as you need to. I think the more saturated the paper gets, the better the water ends up looking then. Next, I colored in the seaweed with YG 21, 25, and 17. I didn't really do any blending here. I just kind of went in and created some little stripes of color. Then I'm going to go back with E30 and E55 to color in that sandcastle. Again, starting with E30 as my base color, and then going with E55 as my shading color. Blend that out. I went over it several times to get the shading just the way I wanted it to look. Next, I went back to my water tank and added some little dot detail with BG01, kind of more in the corners along the top edge there, places where it would be seen just a little bit more to really give it the look of water. I'm going to color in my first fish with B24 and B29. B24 is my base color, and then along that white stripe on the fish, I added the B29 and blended that out. For this fish here, I'm using Y11, Y08, and YR23. Just a little of the YR23 to add a little bit deeper color there. Blend it all out with Y11, and then I'm going to go back with YR23 and add some little dots to look like fish gills. I'm going to blend together some kind of oranges now and pinks. I'm using YR04, 09, and RB17 for that kind of fuchsia pink fish. And I'm going to feather in my colors here until I get that blended just the way I want it to look. Next, I'm going to color in the bottom of the fish tank. This will not be seen very much. However, I want to make sure that any of it that is seen is colored. I'm using C4 and C6 for the dark gray base. And then along the top of the tank, because this is clear glass, supposedly, I didn't want to leave it stark white because I don't think it blends with the rest of the design very well. So I'm using cool grays in 00, 1, and 3 to add just a touch of color to the top of the glass. and it'll give it that illusion of being clear, but it adds that depth and dimension. I did color in the windows of the sandcastle, even though that's not very realistic with Y11 and Y08, because I felt like it needed a little color of some sort. I used the Fintastic Friends Lawn Fawn dies then that coordinate with the stamped images. Placed those over the images, taped them in place with Post-it tape, and ran them through the Big Shot. Even though I'm using the magnetic platform, I find when die cutting multiple images that dies try to migrate towards one another if you're die cutting more than one. So I always like to secure it with Post-it tape so that all that hard work with coloring doesn't get ruined. I'll go ahead and pop all my images out now. And then I am ready to create the window for the front of the card. I am using an Avery L note card here in this bright pink and a stitched rectangle die from Lawn Fawn. And then inside that stitched rectangle die, I'm going to take one of the mini windows dies from the Essentials by Ellen die collection and place that, kind of centering it there on both sides and then the top and the bottom. I'm going to tape them in place again and then run these through the Big Shot die cutting machine. This is going to give me a cute little window panel for the front of my card. I like to die cut as many pieces at one time as possible with one pass of the machine if possible. Now that window is going to have a little notch that you can take your scissors and just snip that so that you can open up the windows. I'm going to go ahead and on those score lines for the window, I'm going to bend those back and use the Teflon bone folder to really make sure that my windows are going to open and shut very nicely. Grab my fish tank and I'm going to make sure that everything is going to fit right behind there, and that looks good. The orange note card is also an Avery L note card. I like these bright, fun colors for a summer themed hello card. Now, because this is a window and most of the elements for the card are hidden behind, I felt like even though I love the bright, fun colors, it was a little bit plain. So I'm taking one of my favorite border stamps from Lawn Fawn. This is from the Sharp Backdrops stamp set and the Lawn Fawn Fake Tan ink. And I am going to stamp this border at a diagonal all the way across the front of the card. It's going to give a really great tone-on-tone look, and that way it adds a little bit of interest to the front of the card, since, like I said, most of the elements are going to be hidden behind that window until the recipient opens up that window to see what's inside. So if the stamp doesn't go quite all the way across when you're stamping diagonal, just line it up real quick and stamp that. I love this border. I think it's so easy to create an entire background without having to be too careful with how you line it up. Any way you stamp it looks really good. I'm going to take my black ink now and stamp the hello from the Hello Gorgeous Essentials by Ellen stamp set. It's going to kind of go across that window opening. I tried to make sure that it split the greeting split between the E and the L there. And now I needed just a couple of cute Lawn Fawn Fintastic Friends images to go on that window. I'm using some reds here, R22, 24, 46, and 39. The body I'm keeping a little bit lighter with R22 and R24, and then for the shell, I went with the little bit deeper, darker reds. Go ahead and finish him up. For the can of fish food, I used a couple colors of yellow for the fish. I'm going to use some grays, C3 and C6 for the top of the fish can food. And then because the markers were already out on my desk, I went with the YR04 and 09 for the can of fish food. And it coordinates nicely with the colors that I've used for the outside of the card as well, where the base of the card is in that orange color family. So I'm just using a couple colors, doing a quick job of coloring these here. Again, I will take the coordinating Fintastic Friends dies, place those over both the images, and run them through the Big Shot die cutting machine. Go ahead and lay those out on my card. I'm going to use some glue dots to adhere these in place. adds a little bit of fun and interest and gives you a peek at what you can expect to see inside the window of the card. Added a little crease there to my little critter using a black gel pen to add detail to the eyes, and then a white gel pen to add some details to the shell. I also am going to take my black gel pen and add detail to the eyes for the fish inside the fish tank as well. I'll go ahead and use some glue dots to secure all of the images in place. Take the white gel pen and add detail along the sandy border of the fish tank. I always like the addition of a little bit of white there, or some sparkle or something when I'm doing sand. Then I added some white dots to the yellow fish as well. I'm going to take the Scotch foam adhesive and I'm going to create a layer of adhesive on all 4 sides of this window panel. I cut the one piece in half because it would be a little too wide as is, and this way it goes a little further as well, and then put a couple pieces on each side. Add some adhesive on the back of my fish tank, and then I'm going to kind of line this up, just hold it in place a little bit so that I can center it on the front of the card base. Adhere that in place right there. Go ahead and pop off all of the backs for the foam adhesive and place my window panel in place over that fish tank. So some of the sides of the fish tank aren't going to be as visible, but it still gives that illusion of opening the windows to see that cute little fish tank behind. Go ahead and open those. I'll add some black gel detail to the eyes, add that additional fish, and there is a peek at the finished fish tank. I hope you've enjoyed this video showcasing the Essentials by Ellen stamps and dies, as well as the Lawn Fawn stamps and dies. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.